maybe her evil was something acquired over years of neglect and rust. I am Brandy, otherwise known as the Terrorific Lady, and today we are delving into the retrospective of John Carpenter's Christine and peeling back the layers of chrome and rust to take a peek into the movie about a machine with a murderous mind. Get started, I want to thank all of my supporters out there. It means the world. Every like, every comment, every subscription, every supporter on Ko-fi and Twitch. You are the ones that rev up this channel and keep it running, and for that I thank you. All right, to the retrospective. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything, let's take a quick pit stop to recognize the directorial genius sitting behind the wheel, John Carpenter. As mentioned in the retrospective that I did for John Carpenter's The Thing, he had already gained a name and notoriety from his films such as Halloween and Escape from New York. It was released in 1983 and based on the Stephen King novel of the same name. But how did this make it from the pages of a book to the big screen? Producer Richard Kobritz, who had previously worked on the miniseries Salem's Lot based on another Stephen King novel, was sent early manuscripts of Cujo and Christine. And he was ultimately drawn to Christine because of our fascination with cars. Especially America's fascination with cars, because yeah, we love our cars. John Carpenter wasn't initially the first choice to direct. He was already attached to another Stephen King adaptation, Firestarter, and Eric Van Lustbader's The Ninja. However, delays on both of those projects freed up his time to be able to work on Christine. And he had previously collaborated with Kobritz on the TV movie Someone's Watching Me, so there was that bit of familiarity there. And he brought on Bill Phillips to write the screenplay.
I had worked with John Carpenter twice before. The first thing I did for him was called Sea Story, never got made. The second one was Firestarter. And the only reason that didn't get made was budgetary reasons at Universal. But John called me right after that fell through and said, Stephen King has another book coming out called Christine. It's about a killer car. I thought he was kidding. He said, just read it. If you don't like it, fine. If you like it, let me know. So I read it. I got halfway through it and I called him up. I said, this is really good.
Along with special effects supervisor Roy Arbogast, who he previously worked with on The Thing. Carpenter himself admitted that Christine wasn't really a passion project for him.
Richard approached me and said he had the rights. He wanted to do this new book by Stephen King called Christine. And I read it. And at the time, I had just made a film called The Thing, which had not done particularly well at the box office in the United States. And I had received a lot of criticism for being too violent and ooky and grotesque and so forth. So I was looking around for work and I read this, and it's a haunted car story, but with really interesting characters. So I said, why not? I need a job, why not?
He saw it as a necessary step for the time and something that he needed for his career. Whenever he reflected on the novel, he didn't really see it as something overtly scary. But you have John Carpenter behind the wheel, so you know that his horror and suspense elements are going to take center stage. Like all of John Carpenter's plots, the plot of Christine is very simple and straightforward. It focuses on the character of Arnie Cunningham, who is the very quintessential, shy, awkward, nerdy teenager who is picked on and bullied a lot. But it is love at first sight when he comes across Christine, who is a very rundown, battered, and rusted Plymouth Fury. And despite her condition, he immediately writes a check to purchase her. And he pours his heart and his soul into restoring the car. And as he spends more time with her, a very noticeable transformation occurs. He becomes more confident, assertive, and even aggressive, which is a very stark contrast to the very shy, nerdy, awkward teenager that he was before. But Christine ain't just a car, oh no. If she was just a car, then what would be the point of this movie? Oh no. Christine is a car that is a very malevolent entity. I don't know if there's a ghost inside the car. I don't know what's causing that car to be evil. It's just evil. She begins to take revenge, very violent revenge, on anybody who wrongs Arnie or disrespects him or her. She doesn't tolerate disrespect. The film blends elements of obsession, psychological thriller, and supernatural horror as the body count starts to rise and rise and rise. Arnie's best friend, Dennis, and Arnie's girlfriend, Leigh, are very concerned about Arnie, and rightfully so. They're concerned just about how much time he's spending with Christine and how his entire personality is changing around her. So they both try to break Christine's influence over Arnie, but they are dealing with something that they cannot even begin to understand. Beyond the plot of the movie, Christine dives into several themes. First, there are the themes of obsession and possession. Arnie's infatuation with Christine spirals into a dangerous obsession, which leads to a form of possession in a way. She completely possesses him because of his obsession with her. His identity becomes intertwined with the car, blurring the lines between man and machine, to where he's not even really the same person. Second, Christine explores isolation, which is another common Carpenter theme, and alienation. Arnie's very intense connection with the car isolates him from his friends and family. As Christine's influence grows, this alienation deepens, highlighting the very destructive force and nature of unchecked obsession. The film also touches on the dark side of technology. Christine is a very sentient, evil entity that Arnie is possessed with, and it highlights the potential dangers of society's attachment to various forms of technology. She serves as a cautionary tale about allowing that kind of influence and force to take over our lives. Bullying and revenge are also very prominent themes, because anybody who has been bullied in the past probably very heavily identifies with the character of Arnie, but probably never thought of going that far. Christine acts as an instrument of revenge against those who have wronged Arnie, and it highlights the very seductive and destructive danger of seeking revenge and retribution. The best revenge is living well. Remember that, everybody. Finally, the film explores the themes of identity and transformation. Arnie's personality undergoes a shift under Christine's influence, transforming him from a very shy and awkward teenager to a very confident yet corrupt individual. This explores how outside influences and external forces can shape and distort our sense of self. The overall tone of Christine is a blend of dark suspense, psychological thriller, and horror. Carpenter very expertly builds the tension through atmosphere and cinematography, a very creepy, eerie soundtrack, and that constant sense of foreboding that is interwoven throughout every frame. With moments of dark humor and teenage drama in the film Christine, it maintains an unsettling atmosphere as her true nature and true power is revealed. Now let's peek under the hood, so to speak, and explore some very interesting behind-the-scenes details about the production. 24 different kinds of Christines were purchased for the making of this movie. There were makes and models ranging from the years 1956 to 1958 and included Furies, yes, but also Savoys and Belvedere. And Christine is an evil entity to the film, and there were a lot of challenges involving her on set. Yeah, Christine was a top 10 selling paperback at the time of filming this movie, which heightened the anticipation behind it. But production was not always smooth sailing. The scene where Buddy Repperton's gang is destroying Christine, they were destroying a real car. So there was injuries from shards of flying metal and broken glass. Also, when Christine was on fire, this was the pre-CGI era. And Christine was not driving herself. There was an actual stunt coordinator driving the car by the name of Terry Leonard. And he had an oxygen bottle with him inside the car because the fire was sucking all the oxygen out of the inside really fast. And there was a constant worry about the fire tank. Also, going back to the buzz surrounding the film, the casting process saw about 200 young actors auditioning for roles in the film. Kevin Bacon was chosen to play the role of Arnie Cunningham, but he dropped the role to get the lead part in Footloose. And as we know, it's all history from there. So the part instead went to Keith Gordon. And for some, he delivered a very memorable performance in the role. And he was very dedicated to the role as well. There's an anecdote about why Keith Gordon's voice sounds different in the scene where he is defending Christine to his parents. He was suffering from an asthma attack during that scene, and he just powered on through it. That's dedication. And he also nearly passed out while filming Arnie's death scene. To achieve a flushed look, he was holding his breath, which almost caused him to pass out and lose consciousness. But in spite of all the challenges, the production of Christine and the atmosphere on set just seemed to be very lighthearted, very jovial, and everybody just seemed to be having a good time. And the cast and crew were constantly playing pranks on each other. Alexandra Paul, who played Leigh, enlisted her identical twin sister to stand in for her very briefly during a scene, which very hilariously confused Carpenter. But Carpenter was a scamp, and he was no stranger to pranks himself. He admitted to unplugging the cables in the sound department just before calling action so he could see the sound crew scramble. Yeah, little stinker. Christine was released in theaters on December 9th, 1983, and received a mixed bag of reactions from critics. Some were less than enthusiastic about it, with one even calling Christine the most foul-mouthed movie in English-speaking cinema, which Scarface definitely eclipsed that record later on, because that movie used the F word over 200 times. Look it up. But it holds a 74% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and the critics' consensus calls it very moody, macabre fun. Notable critics like Roger Ebert praised the film, and its formidable personality and the audience's investment in the final duel between Christine and the bulldozer. Mano a mano, machine versus machine. He famously quipped that the film would make you want to lay rubber halfway down the Eisenhower after it was over. And even in a 2023 reflection later on, John Carpenter looked back very fondly on his making of the film, calling it very fun, relaxing, and easy. On the flip side, there were some not so positive things said about the film. Janet Maslin of the New York Times called the film just very slow and boring, and Variety felt the premise was very shop-worn. Stephen King himself was less than enthusiastic about the adaptation. He mentioned in a 2003 interview that Christine was one of the adaptations that absolutely bored him, stating that he prefers bad over boring. In spite of the mixed critical reaction and King's own feelings about the adaptation, the film has gained a cult following over the years. Fans appreciate the unique premise, Carpenter's atmospheric direction, the practical effects, and the very memorable soundtrack. And I think that its enduring appeal lies in several different factors. First, Carpenter's atmospheric direction is undeniably a strength. It creates that sense of dread, tension, and unease. And the concept of a sentient evil car is a very interesting and unique premise, and Christine is pretty much a character of the movie in her own right, even though she is an inanimate object. A very evil inanimate object. And I think the film's exploration with obsession, transformation, and the dark side of technology resonates with audiences. Because I think we can all, to some extent, identify with being an outsider or being bullied just like Arnie was. And the allure of something that makes us feel all powerful, even if in the end it is ultimately destructive. The practical effects used to bring Christine to life, especially when Christine was repairing herself, definitely still hold up today. And of course, the score adds another layer of atmosphere to the film. Christine's impact can be seen in various forms of media. The Indian film Tarzan, the Wonder Car is loosely based on the premise of Christine. It has also been parodied in episodes of Futurama and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, which showcases Christine's pop culture appeal. David Gordon Green, the director of the new Halloween trilogy, cited Christine as a love letter and influence on his 2022 film Halloween Ends. And for those who are potentially interested in seeing this story revisited, there is a remake, hopefully in the works, with Brian Fuller directing. When Carpenter was told about that, he joked, "Oh boy, well, good luck to him. It'll probably be better." John, you're so self-deprecating. The remake seems to have stalled as of 2025, hasn't gone forward, hasn't been completely 100% shelved. As far as I know, it just stalled. Now let's circle back and appreciate the specific Carpenter DNA and blueprint that we see in this film. His fingerprints and touch are all over this. First, there is the atmosphere. And as I discussed in the retrospective for Halloween, he is a master of tension and mood. He builds dread through his very tight, methodical pacing, framing, and that iconic use of widescreen Panavision, which he uses here to make Christine feel like an all-encompassing, inescapable presence. Then, of course, you can't talk about a John Carpenter film without talking about a music. That is a very big imprint and DNA across all of his films. Christine, this film, yes, it's got a very, very 50s rock and roll soundtrack and presence, but there is also that very signature Carpenter synthesizer score, which he created alongside frequent collaborator Alan Howarth. It's often subtle, underscoring the menace of Christine rather than overpowering it. It creates this very unique blend of period authenticity and electronic dread, which that juxtaposition is very Carpenter. And let's not forget the protagonist. With John Carpenter and his protagonist, he likes to explore anti-heroes, outcasts, people who are on the outside looking in. So he doesn't really like to explore characters that are one way or the other, black or white. He likes to look at characters that are in the middle, in the shades of gray. This is a recurring theme throughout a lot of his work. And finally, as I mentioned previously, there's the very minimalist, straightforward storytelling. He gives you just exactly what you need. There's not a lot of stuff bogging Christine down. He cuts the fat and he focuses directly on impact. Even in a story that's about a possessed car, there is a very lean, almost muscular quality to it. And this makes this film undeniably his. These directorial choices showed that even with a film he just considered a job at the time, carries his unmistakable stamp, contributing to why Christine still resonates with audiences today. And there is the retrospective on Christine. Christine might not be Carpenter's most overtly terrifying film. Its unique presence, its exploration of themes, the very memorable presence of the protagonist Arnie Cunningham, and that undeniable Carpenter touch has cemented Christine's place as a cult classic. The idea of an evil car that symbolizes both ugliness and potential danger, combined with the character study of Arnie, makes for a very engaging and interesting movie. Thank you so much for watching this retrospective on Christine. I have to ask, what are your thoughts on Christine? Do you think that it is awesome? Or do you agree with King's assessment that it's meh and slow and boring? Let me know in the comments below. I will have more John Carpenter retrospectives on the way, but until then, definitely rewind back and watch the 3 retrospectives I have already done about his films in the description. Class is dismissed, everybody, for now, but I will see you next time.